Well, welcome back. It's been a little while, but always great when we have time to sit down with Drew Allen. He's a writer, political commentator, the author of For Christ and Country, The Martyrdom of Charlie Kirk. He's a former publicist there of Charlie Kirk. He's also known as nationally as a millennial minister of truth and the host of the Drew Allen Show, and which offers commentary on faith, culture, and politics. There's a picture of the book, For Christ and Country, there by Drew Allen. Check out his place to contact with him, drewallen.substack.com. And there's the picture of that landing page as well, drewallen.substack.com. Drew, good to see you, buddy. How are you?
Hey, Perry. Good to be with you.
Thanks for your time, buddy. Hey, I just start off curious. What do you think of the coverage of the Charlie Kirk trial so far, at least during that pre-trial hearing?
It's been good for the most part. I think it's been spectacular, actually, from the perspective of it proving all of these sane individuals in the country correct, and the Candace Owens lunatics, the grifters that they are. I mean, it was about as black and white a case as I've ever seen, Perry. It was pretty definitive, and I think it's important. I mean, basically, we've heard these conspiracy theories, that the Jews killed Charlie Kirk, et cetera, because, and a lot of their premise was, well, the trial hasn't happened, they're hiding stuff. Well, now we have the pre-trial, and everything was aired, and all the things that we believe to be true were in fact confirmed, and Candace Owens and the others look like the demonic individuals that they are.
I was sideswiped by an interview a week or so ago about all this, and I cannot believe, I guess the hard part I have believe here is, if Tyler Robertson was innocent, let's just hypothetical, but if he was totally innocent, and he's a hitman for, he's a fall guy, I should say, for somebody, human nature would kick in, especially when the death penalty's put on the table. Then he would say, I'm innocent. But there was none of that. And I'm kind of going, what's with all these other theories?
Well, it drove me crazy from the beginning, Perry, because we obviously have a left-wing. Let me put it this way, Perry. The kind of conspiracy crowd, especially the Candace Owens people that are saying, the Jews did it, anybody but Tyler Robinson did it. It comes from this perspective that is divorced from reality. So Tyler Robinson was steeped in the transgender kind of culture, if you will. He was dating, living with a boyfriend, but, transgender person. And we know that the radical elements in particular in the transgender community, violence is coming from there in a shocking way. Whether it's what happened in Nashville, Tennessee with Audrey Hale, or, Charlie Kirk's assassination was sandwiched between a couple of other transgender attacks, incidents in which transgender individuals carried out mass shootings, etc. And obviously they belong to a victim class that the left has created. And there's an underlying mental illness that exists as well, because they believe something that is not true, that they biologically, their gender, is fluid, they can transition if they cut off the right parts, et cetera. It's very, very dark and sick. So we know this is a problem, and we know that they had been calling for violence against Charlie Kirk for a long time. So the idea that it was impossible that Tyler Robinson, somebody that was radicalized by the left, who had this transgender person that believed the talking points from that group, the idea that it was impossible that happened was shocking to me. It was as clear as day. I mean, obviously you want to, you're innocent until proven guilty in this country, but it lined up with the reality we're experiencing in the country. And so for these people to go off the rails and say he was a patsy, it was actually the Jews that did it, and their only evidence that it was the Jews was that, well, Charlie Kirk had some questions about what happened on October 7th, and, he had some friction with... So the Jews killed him over? I mean, there was no basis at all for that. And so it's great that we had the pretrial, and now we see that everything we said, the DNA on stuff, the notes, the text messages, all that was real. His parents turned him in. His roommate, said it was him. People in these different chat rooms he confessed to. And so it's irritating to me, Perry, because we should have had a conversation, which is why I wrote the book, about left-wing violence in this country and how it claimed one of ours finally. And that didn't happen because of the conspiracy crowd.
What is the biggest misunderstanding about Charlie Kirk?
Well, from the left, those that celebrated in the streets after his death like a bunch of jihadists, their misunderstanding is this lie that Charlie Kirk was a hateful person and that his rhetoric was some form of violence. Charlie Kirk loved even his enemies more than his enemies loved one another. And that was based in Scripture and in Jesus' teachings. The big lie from the left and from the kind of atheistic crowd, even if they claim to be Christians, but those who are Democrats in particular, it's that, love is condoning everything no matter what. And of course, the left does not condone, as in support, anything that we believe or do, and so it's hypocritical to begin with. But Jesus' message and his actions were not, love is you do you. That wasn't close to it. I mean, I don't know how you can read any scripture, and most of these people haven't, I guess, but I don't know how you can read the Gospels and arrive at the conclusion that, Jesus instructs us to just say, yeah, everything is okay, everything goes. It's the opposite message in the Bible, and of course, he did go and meet with sinners time and time again, and he called them to repentance, and he called them to change their lives and to go forth and sin no more in so many cases, right? So those are a couple of the big ones for me, Perry.
Yeah. In your book, let's get into it a little bit, Drew. You kind of make a comparison between Charlie Kirk and Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Draw that conclusion for us.
Well, both individuals, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, preacher, if you will, obviously in Nazi Germany. He willingly gave his life. He knowingly gave his life for what he believed in, which of course one was that what the Nazis were doing was evil, and so he was a martyr in his time in Germany, and Charlie Kirk was the same way. Charlie Kirk fashioned himself over time more and more like a preacher. He could not divorce, obviously, the spiritual component that drove him ultimately from that which had to do with politics, etc. And that irked a lot of people, by the way, Perry. Kind of early donors of TPUSA, he viewed it as this secular organization that was just going to address, how capitalism's good and et cetera, economics. But obviously, Charlie had a transformation in his life, and that's what made him the powerful force of nature that he was. And Charlie Kirk's messages, if you go back and listen to what he said at college campuses, he spoke about Christ. He spoke about the Bible, because you couldn't separate conversations about creation and God's plan and a higher transcendent power from conversations about what's wrong with gender theory, etc. And his life was under threat in a serious way, at least for 3 or 4 years, and he continued to press forward. He would joke with people. Maybe other people don't understand this unless you're in that situation when you're texting friends and stuff, but, he was aware that his life could be taken because he saw what we were observing when we conclude that Tyler Robinson could have done it, and he pressed forward anyway, and he gave everything for this country and for Christ, frankly, and he is absolutely a martyr. Some people think that's controversial. It's like, I don't know why. And by the way, you can be a martyr for anything. It doesn't have to be related to religion, but he was certainly a martyr in the traditional sense, religious sense, too.
Very well said. Let me take a break here. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, Drew's new book is called For Christ and Country. Where can they get it, Drew?
They can get it on Amazon.com, and if they block it for some reason, because I've had trouble being censored with this book, they can get it at Target.com or Walmart, I think, too.
Okay. And then Drew's, you can get a hold of him, drewallen.substack.com, drewallen.substack.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Drew Drew Allen's back with us. Always an honor to have him. His new book is out called For Christ and Country, The Martyrdom of Charlie Kirk. There's a picture of the cover of the book. Check it out online. And you can also get it at the stores, and check out drewallen.substack.com. Drew, back to the trial just for a moment. I forgot to ask you this question. With the death penalty on the table, do you know if Utah law requires 100% of the jury to convict?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. And I believe it's death by firing squad thereafter as well, right?
Yeah, that's there. So then the other question is, you got to wonder, all right, so what is the prosecution going to do here?
Yeah, I mean, the prosecution, I think you'll see it kind of mimic what they did in the pretrial. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I mean, after watching the pretrial, I don't really see any avenue of escape for Tyler Robinson's defense. I mean, most of the defense has been made by people like Candace Owens, and their conspiracy theories obviously don't hold up in a court of law in front of actual citizens who are making these decisions. And I have to think now that actually Candace Owens and these other people perhaps did a disservice maybe to his defense team. Because after that pretrial, it became so obvious that these people were grifters extraordinaires, and they made it more apparent, I think, and clear now that, of course, it was Tyler Robinson after months and months and months of us being told these things were conspiracy theories, because the pretrial dealt with a lot of that stuff. I mean, many things were presented that the conspiracy theorists were saying didn't exist. And I think this is pretty cut and dry. I mean, I don't know that I've seen, and look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not following every case around the country, but I haven't seen a more clear-cut case in my lifetime than this one.
Okay. So I want to come back to the motive a little bit. And I realize this is, subject to all kinds of stuff. But the point is this, that he was talking to people from a biblical perspective on the boundaries of life as set forth in the Bible, if I can put it that way. And these people interpreted that as hate speech to the point where they want to kill. What does that tell you about the spiritual climate of America?
Well, we have a spiritual crisis. That's number one. If you think that you can get ourselves out of this mess through politics alone, you are gravely mistaken. This is a spiritual crisis, first and foremost. And of course, Perry, the fact that it is a spiritual crisis lends itself to the historical fact that the United States of America is also a Christian nation. I know that makes certain people on the left in this, their heads explode, but that's the reality of this country. We are intertwined with that, and that doesn't make us a theocracy. That's a very different thing. We are not a theocratic country, but we are a Christian country. And, really it is up to Christians in this country to save it first and foremost. People that are not of faith are going to fall short. They're not going to be able to really wrest this country from the jowls of the communists that obviously have infiltrated this country, many of them as Muslims, for example, too, and they can't get the job done. So this is a wake-up call for Christians. You saw what Charlie Kirk was able to accomplish, and the only reason he was able to accomplish what he did was because of his authentic spiritual faith, because he was fearless. And most people, the thing holding us back is a unhealthy dose of fear. And he had none, which is why he was able to go out there and make so many converts on hostile campuses and elsewhere to the cause of liberty and, frankly, Christianity.
So this sounds political. It's not. It's just a reality. So you can talk to anybody. You're going to get an opinion. Everybody's got an opinion about everything. You and I are exchanging opinions. All right, I get all that, okay? But it doesn't translate into votes.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest concern. I mean, here in the state of Oregon, we just came through our primary, and man, I looked at the numbers, I just shake my head. And yet I'll interview people all day long that understand the problem. But when you actually get down to the actual vote, and I realize voter integrity is on the table in a lot of ways, and the SAVE Act and all that, but at the end of the day, if Christians who are eligible to register would register and vote, I don't think there isn't any case where we couldn't sway the election, but somehow we don't do it.
Yeah, Perry, it's kind of like, I've had friends that have dealt with, weight issues, and they become horribly obese and they want to get in shape, but they've spent too much time not getting in shape. And so the thought of getting in shape is so overwhelming that they just can't get themselves to break from that cycle. And it's kind of a similar thing that happens to Christians that refuse to vote. They haven't participated in civics in a long time. They probably don't really understand it as well as they ought to in this republic. And, they've led themselves to believe that it's useless. There's no point. They demand perfection in some way. They don't believe that change is possible, but change starts local. Obviously, one of the problems we have in the Republican Party or any political party is that we're not really choosing our candidates, right? We're just sitting back and going about our lives, and some other organization or big money person is, like Graham Plattner in Maine, the Nazi communist, they're going out and, Graham Plattner, go vote for him, but the Democrat voter wasn't paying attention. They didn't choose Graham Plattner, but that's what they're given a vote for. The same thing happens on the Republican side, which is why you have all these rhinos. And so obviously it seems like an overwhelming thing to engage in because it feels like a lost cause. I mean, right now with the SAVE Act, when you have 80% of Americans, including Democrats, including Republicans, including independents, that act, which is simply common sense to require proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections, everyone wants it, and yet you've got Republican senators who refuse to pass the legislation. That's very demoralizing, and I think the people at the top know it's demoralizing. They keep acting like that, and Christian voters and others sit here and say, there's no point. What is it? I mean, we gave you everything, and you're squandering it. But, it takes more involvement. It's a longer process. If people don't care about their local elections, and they let their own small towns go to hell, if you will, well, of course, they're going to have that attitude on steroids toward the federal government where you feel like you have no access whatsoever. So it's about renewing civics in this country. It's getting back to the basics, frankly.
Hard question to ask. Do you see any other Charlie Kirks out there?
No, I don't. Not that are already on kind of a national stage. In a way, I'm not looking for another Charlie Kirk, though, because he was one of a kind. He was that unique. It's kind of like looking for Rush Limbaugh on the radio. It's not going to happen. But I think there are. But here's what I think, though, Barry. I think that someone that's needed, like a Charlie Kirk, we will find out there. They could be in a high school classroom right now. They could be in college. They could be even younger than that. And maybe that's uncomfortable to people because they feel like we need it now, but it's out there. I mean, I think I was watching the World Cup, and the World Cup final was was Argentina versus Spain, and obviously Messi's the famous Argentinian. They call him the greatest of all time, soccer player. And then they had this guy on the Spanish team that was, 19 years old, I think, Lamine Yamal. I forgot which way his name goes. But anyway, there's a picture of Messi with that kid holding him. Messi was already a professional player, and he's holding this kid in some kind of, I don't know if it was UNICEF or what, but he's holding that soccer player. 19 years later, they're playing against each other in a World Cup. And so the point is, these players are out there. I don't want to call them saviors because we only have one, but these heroes of our republic are out there, and I think they will rise up. But we've also got to create a culture, and it's you and I's responsibility to try and foster that and find those people and encourage them.
Well, you made the comparison. I was going to go to the Rush Limbaugh thing because being in broadcasting, I followed that very, very closely. In fact, I ended up managing the station that Rush Limbaugh got a start at years ago in Sacramento. But the interesting thing is, in talking to him, he was a unique guy. But reading his book now, his book, Rush Limbaugh's book, put out by his brother and his wife, is fascinating. And how many broadcasters came along and thought they were going to be the next Rush Limbaugh, and the ratings fell through the floor. But I look at Charlie Kirk and I thought, such boldness and such clarity. I mean, it was more than biblically based. I mean, it was his soul, and that's a rare thing to see today.
Yeah, I think part of the problem, and I can speak from this on a personal level, God has a plan for our lives that is bigger than any that we can imagine for ourselves. And it takes people, some people never reach it, they never get in alignment with God. I've experienced this where I wanted to be an actor for a long time, and I was a pretty good actor, but it just didn't work out for me. But I pursued so many avenues in my life, and I kind of knew deep down, like, this is what I want, and I'm not thinking about what God wants for my life, and I'm not even open to it because I'm so myopic in my view. And so I think Charlie, though, he was in line with what he wanted to do and what his calling was, with what God's was for his life. And I think that's why he had the success that he did in some ways. And I think for a lot of us, including myself, we struggle to submit. And I think that once we can learn to submit and have some, humility, then we can start to see changes in our lives that exceed our wildest imagination.
40 seconds. What do you want people to get from your book?
Well, I want them to get refocused on what Charlie Kirk's actual legacy was. I want them to confront and go back to that moment in which we learned he died. And I want people to reflect on what I write about, which is we have a serious left-wing violence problem in this country, and it's akin to jihadists on 9/11. And then I want Christians to dig deep and understand that they, too, can become their version of Charlie Kirk, the best version of themselves, because that was Charlie's legacy. He became Charlie over time because he was an exceptional American who demanded better from himself each day. And then we've got to rise to the occasion in his absence and continue his legacy to save this country.
All right, check out the book called For Christ and Country. There's a picture of the cover of the book on the screen. Check it out online or at bookstores. And then, of course, you can connect with Drew through the drewallen.substack.com and check out his podcast, The Drew Allen Show. Thank you, buddy. Good to see you. God bless you, pal. Hang in there.
You too. Appreciate it.
Okay.